Hello everyone, good morning. Today we will talk about the May 4th movement in China. So it is a big event in Chinese history. And today we will talk about the introduced reason, the leaders and the main events, the influences, the organizational support, the mobilization and social injustice. Now I will talk about the reasons. At the end of the First World War, like in 1980, China was convinced it would be able to reclaim the territories occupied by Germany in present-day Shandong province. Some classmates are from Shandong, yeah. And the warlord government of the day has struck a deal with the Japanese, offering the German colonies in return for financial support. And on the cultural side, the students are the major support of the movement. So they have been inspired in the preceding 2 decades by Western thought. They create a feeling of frustration and dissatisfaction with Chinese tradition. So they would like to change the condition of that period of China. So
Okay. So also the main reason is that after World War One, all the countries like the United States, England, and Italy and France, they gathered to sign a treaty in Paris. It's called in the Paris Peace Conference in 1990. It was called the Treaty of Versailles. So in that conference, China requested to take back Qingdao, which was occupied by Germans at that time. But because China declared war to Germany and they won, so that's the reason China requests that. But all the other countries like the United States and England and Italy, they think they think the right of the of Qingdao it should go to Japan, and the people of China they protest and they didn't agree to this, and that's why this movement happened.
Later, I will talk about the leaders and the group support of this movement. First one is the leaders. There are 2 types of leaders of the May 4th movement. The first type is celebrities that already had some influence on the contemporary society, such as Hu Shi, Chen Duxiu, and Li Dazhao. All of them are also the leader of the New Culture movement, which started several years before the May 4th movement. This movement mainly focuses on preserving the new culture from Europe, including the democracy and science. They encourage people to get rid of the old thinking of ancient China, like the Confucian. In fact, it was the new culture movement that stimulated students and the public to protest the authorities, which was the government decision to sign the unjust treaty, which Jing Hong talked about before. And another type is the representatives among the students. In fact, May 4th movement was a nationwide movement. So there were tons of student representatives in charge of different regions of different universities. So I will pick up 3 in Beijing to talk about. For example, Luo Jialun and Fu Sinian, they are both the students from Peking University. Luo Jialun wrote the Declaration of the Academic Community in Beijing, which printed on the leaflet to give out to the public on the days of May 4th. Fu Sinian was the chief director of the protest march on May 4th. And another student is Wen Yiduo. He was the representative from Tsinghua University. He almost what the Chinese knows. He became a famous poet later. He took part in the meeting of National Student Union. So from the leaders, we can see the organization support, because at the back of these leaders, there always should be an organization in their back. Firstly, in the back of the celebrities, there is an organization called the National Diplomacy Association. In fact, this was the first national community of the diplomacy in modern China. The organization was composed by illustrious peoples at that time, including Liang Qichao, Lin Chaoming, Chen Duxiu, and so on. They kept doing efforts to prevent Chinese government to accept international unjust treaty. Later, when the students launched the May 4th movement, these people gave them encouragement and assistance. And another important support should be the various associations from university all over the country. On the back of the university in Beijing, there is a club called the Revere Club, which was an association founded by students from Peking University. This club is to publish students' voice on their magazines. Following the new cultural movement, their magazine also promoted the idea of democracy and independence, to encourage people to pursue change and not to be submissive to the power from the Western country. The Luo Jialun and the Fu Sinian that I talked before were also the initiator of this association. And another group support was the National Association from Shanghai. This also composed by students. Objective to the unequal agreement with Japan, some overseas students suspended their study and instituted the National Association with the support of the celebrities. This association gathered almost 200 young people at that time, and most of them became the important power in the May 4th movement later. And then we will talk about the main events of the May 4th movement.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the main events and kind of how it started how the May 4th movement started in Beijing and eventually spread across the whole country. So the event started in May 2nd when Lin Chaoming, who is the chief of foreign affairs of the committee, he wrote on the newspaper that Shandong is gone and China is not China anymore. And so the people in China start to realize that Japan has taken part of China. And then in May 4th at 10 a.m., the students, 3,000 students in Peking University, they gathered in Tiananmen and they wrote in blood. They wrote that return Qingdao. They wrote this in blood in a paper and they hold it. And then they marched to the embassy of countries like Americas and England. And then on the following day, students started to strike. All the students a lot of students in Beijing, they start to strike, and the presidents of those universities request to resign, and over 25,000 students they didn't go to class, and more than 900 students were caught. Also, the students, they gave a speech and they published news on the papers, and they started to boycott goods from Japan. And eventually, in the June 5th, all the workers and the businessmen in China, which grows during the World War I because of the European business kind of stuck, and then the Chinese businessmen started to grow during the World War I, and at that time they become like a strong force in the Chinese society, and the workers and the businessmen from across the country started to boycott as well. The major cities include Tianjin, Shanghai, Sichuan, and Guangzhou. And the event finally ends when the representative of China did not sign on the Treaty of ESL. So that's it. Is there any questions?
Sorry, we haven't finished.
So you want to talk about the influence?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. So after the main events, I want to talk about the events of this moment. There are several influences, and the biggest one which Jinhong talked about already mentioned, because of the pressure from the students and the public, the Chinese diplomacy representative didn't sign the Treaty of the Versailles. And for another influence, is this kind of movement encouraged the later generations like us to pursue science, justice, and to protest the authorities. And another influence is at that time, modern China was just formed. So, but there are still some fundamentalism along the people. But with the help of the May 4th movement, China didn't go back to the fundamentalism. And another influence is the education revolution. In the ancient China, women were not allowed to go to school. But under the influence of this kind of a movement, because people all learn from the idea of Europe, so the girls are allowed to go to the school. And also the last influence is the fundamental of the community party of the modern China. Yeah, that's all.
So the May 4th movement is a part of cultural revolution of China and also a part of social movement. And hope you guys are not feel sleepy and that's all. Thank you.
Wait, 1 second. 1 second. Why don't you, maybe there are questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, come back up here, please. Well, thank you for the first presentation. I think they did that's hard, is being the first to go. First, I want to ask the three of you, just how do you feel? Just in general, are you feeling a little relieved?
Yeah.
How did you feel when you were presenting? Let's start with you, Mogo. How did you feel when you were presenting?
I just, during the representation, I just want to speak. I just want to tell all of you guys what I have searched.
So yeah, very good. How did you feel when you were presenting?
I feel kind of more nervous than I expected.
More nervous than you expected. Okay, that happens. That happens. Why do you think you were nervous? Because it seems to me like you did prepare a lot of information, all of you. So that's good. But was it because the video camera's on?
Yeah, probably.
Probably see Big Brother's watching. Oh no, Big Brother's watching. And how about you? How did you feel?
Well, I don't know. It's okay.
Okay. What did you like about your presentation? and about working as a group?
Maybe like it is all about the like academic knowledge of this social event, and I'm afraid that people will feel like boring because no one likes these historical things.
Because it's a lot of factual information.
Yeah.
Is that, no, but sometimes it can be interesting to learn about that. And you said it was called the May 1st movement.
May 4th.
Yeah.
The May 4th movement.
Yes.
Okay, so I heard that. May 4th movement. And this is something that happened in China.
Yes.
So did you feel kind of passionate about it because you can connect because it's from your
Yes.
country? So that's
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. Great. Does anyone have any feedback? When we give feedback, I always like to start with the positive, because there's always positive things that happen in presentations. And then maybe if you have a suggestion for improvement, not a criticism, okay? Just something to think about for the next time. So maybe one thing that's positive and one thing that can be for...
Like a group.
Yeah, like a group, a global. You don't have to point in individuals because this is the first time you're presenting. So it's practice. I mean, I want to give you practice as much as I can, and I don't want you to feel comfortable. Uncomfortable. I want you to feel comfortable and just get as much practice and think about, okay, what did I do well? Because you all do things well, and what can you improve? Why not? And you're also going to be able to observe yourselves. Later, when I download, I'm going to try to download the videos on Moodle. So does anyone have any positive, yes?
I think that you said a lot about this topic. You gave us, I didn't know anything about that, so you gave me much information to understand what you're talking about. It was very nice, you had many events that I have now in my mind. But I would like to tell you that it will be better if we have on screen something so that I can connect with your words better. Just if you have a PowerPoint maybe the next time if you want. And maybe a little more energy in your speech because we don't have the presentation, and I was trying to hear to you, and it was very understandable, very nice, but I would like maybe more energy in the voice or a little movement so that to stay connected in what you say.
Okay.
But very good trial, I like it.
Okay, good. Anyone else? I think those are good points. I thought that you could tell that you prepared. I liked a lot how you would refer to each other. You're like, oh, and then he said this or she said that. And so you could tell that you were a group and you were doing the group presentation. I agree that sometimes it could be helpful having a visual aid, like a PowerPoint or some pictures, because then it gets everyone connected. I think that as often, just like I think presenters sometimes make the same mistake with PowerPoints as they do with note cards. Sometimes they read too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to be careful of that, and that's something you can observe yourselves. But all in all, good job for the first presentation. Okay, so have a seat. So let's see who's going next. Young-hoon, Sodam, and Peter. Yay! Do you need to, are you doing a PowerPoint at all?
Yes,
You
we-
are, okay, so then what we're going to do is the PowerPoint, to make sure that it's connected, there has to be on my computer, okay? And so someone from your group will change the slides. So all you have to do is go on to your email, I guess. Is it your email? So you're in charge of that? Oh, perfect. Excellent. And then what I recommend, because of the way that the video camera is set up, whoever's presenting here, okay, if someone is standing right here, you will continuously be in the video. So if you want to just stand there and if you're in the background. If you don't want to be, if you're not presenting at that moment and you don't want to be on the video, stand over here or stand behind the computer, okay? And again, like it's hard. We're in a strange class to do the presentations. We're trying to make this space work for us, and as much as you can, try to engage with the audience. Eye contact, not just eye contact with the video camera. What you want to think about when you're presenting is sweeping your eyes. You don't necessarily have to look at one person. You can stop and look at one person for a few seconds, but then you're going to go this way. Because it can be, nerve-wracking if you're just looking in one place. Okay? But it's going to be great. Let's just practice. If anyone has to go to the bathroom or take a bathroom break now, is the time? Oh boy. I think we're going to get two done today. And the rest of you, please take notes, and that you can share some feedback afterwards.
How to control the DVD? I think you should do that.
Okay.
I'll tell you next time.
Hold on one second. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. I want to make sure I capture the PowerPoint too. Can you move your stand over a little bit? Yes, so that I can get you in the PowerPoint a little bit more. A little more that way. Yes, perfect, perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Yang Wen Zhang, and my team is going to talk about social movement of African American civil rights movement in the United States. We will talk in order of time, which is before the movement, and during the movement, and after the movement. So let's get started. Next slide. First, I want to tell you how slavery started. Slavery of Western was started from Europe countries. So why did Europe need slaves? Well, there may be a lot of reasons, but I think the most influential reason is the lack of the labor power for farms. From 15th century, the age of exploration began when all European countries discovered other countries, like you can see. After discovery of Africa, Europeans took advantage of all of the resources, for example, occupying the territories. After a few decades, their territories were in all over the world. So they changed these territories into farms, and they needed someone who can cultivate them. However, they did not have enough labor power in their original territories in Europe. So they used black people as slaves to cultivate farms, which are called plantation. This situation of Europe was same in America colony of British. Next slide, please. So if we think about slavery, we recall some kind of bad image, like hitting black people with whip, kind of like that. However, at first in America, treatment for slaves were not that harsh. Actually, they are similar to contract workers of these days. They got paid. The contract has also end period, which was 1 year. And after the period of contract, they can be free men, and they can also cultivate their own farm. However, after time went by, things were a little changed. America demanded more slaves. If you see this graph, can you type one more, please? Yeah. If you see this graph, you can see it more clearly. Before 1700, there were not many slaves, but from 70 to 60, the number increased to 189,000, and from 1800 to 1810, the number increased to 4,000 for only 10 years. So why did America, can you go to the next slide, please? So why did America need so many slaves? There are two reasons for that. as northern states in the United States, it has so tough grounds that agriculture was so hard. So they focused on the industrial and trade economy. They got into the market for slaves so they can earn money. The second reason was the emergence of plantation in southern states. Southern state people had really large farms whose ground was so good for agriculture. They need someone to cultivate that plantation farm. Also, as a new plant called cotton was invited and raised in plantation, the labor power for harvest of cotton was so demanded in all over the U.S. In terms of this situation, slavery in the United States developed and developed. Also, there was support of state government to keep the number of slaves increasing. For example, because there were so many black people in the U.S., there were some babies whose mom and dad had different skin colors, who called mulatto. In Virginia, the Congress make a law like if mom is slave, then the son is slave, or if a slave fails to make a new contract, he will be individual property of the master until he dies. Can you go next slide? Yeah, can you go next slide? Oh, before, sorry.
Great.
Can you go previous slide? Yep. Yep, okay. No. After the slide, yeah, thank you. However, things are changed after U.S. independence. So some people who felt guilty of slavery said slavery is bad and we need to change and abolish it. Also, as northern states focused on industrial economy, the need for slaves decreased in that place. And U.S. Congress made a law that forbidden import of new slaves from other countries. But things were different in southern states. Their main strategy for economy was still cotton plantation. If there was no slaves, they cannot grow cotton. So this means that slavery became issue and conflict point of northern and southern states. Can you go next slide, please? Next slide, please. Like that. And this issue became stronger and conflict became stronger. Yeah, okay, and this part was the time before the social movement, and my other teammate, Sodam, will introduce how the social movement worked.
Hi, my name is Sodam, and today I talk about Abraham Lincoln and his life. As all of you know, Lincoln is the 16th President of the United States and well known for one of his address that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. He was born in Kentucky in 89 and grew up there. Both of his parents were farmers without an education, so he was largely self-educated. He disliked the physical labor but loved to live. And he moved to Illinois because of milk sickness and stood on his own bottom. I think the fact that both of the states he lived were on non-slavery holding might influence his views of slavery. He settled down and even ran for the election of the Illinois General Assembly, but at first he failed. So he decided to become a lawyer and began teaching himself law. He became a successful lawyer with a reputation as worked as a lawyer for a few years. At the same time, he challenged the election to the state legislature again and won. And furthermore, he won election to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1846. But he was unpopular with the Illinois voters because he disagreed with the Mexican-American War. So he returned to practicing law for several years. However, as the divide of the statute of slavery in the territories was overheated, so he decided to run for the U.S. Senate in 1858. He competed with Douglas, who declared the voters of each territory had the right to decide whether the territory should be slave or free. Lincoln strongly disagreed this argument, so he warned that slavery was threatening the values of republicanism and asserted that all men are created equally. He lost the Senate election but achieved the reputation because of the series of famous debates against Douglas. For example, at his House divided speech, he said, "I believe this government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free." Finally, he was elected the 16th President of the United States, especially thanks to the strength of his supporters in North and West. And then 7 Southern states which agree with slavery has seceded from the Union and formed their own states of America. So the American Civil War won't begin and last until 1865. At first, the South Army was superior, but as time went by, the North Army was superior due to the Lincoln's prosperity. There are 2 famous addresses Lincoln made during the war. First one is Emancipation Proclamation. He proclaimed all of the slaves to be free, and actually he left people in the border states, so it was not perfect emancipation. And the second one is his celebrated Gettysburg Address in 1863. What I mentioned at the first, the government of the people, by the people, for the people, was from this address. It became one of the most famous speech in the world. And he was elected as a president of the U.S. in 1864, but the war was still in progress. From here, the peer takes the next part. Thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm going to introduce the situation of America after the Civil War. For this part, we can mainly focus on 3 points: the assassination of President Lincoln, and the second, the status of slavery, third, the reconstruction of America. Firstly, I will briefly describe the assassination of President Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of United States, was assassinated by well-known stage actor John Wilkes Booth on April 14, 1965, while attending the theater in the Washington D.C. As you can see in this picture, Lincoln stand there and the murderer stand hired. When he watched the play, the murderer shot in the head. This event marked an extended period of national